From Studio A in the center of New York City, welcome to TKB TV. I'm Tommy D. We've got a lot to talk about here, specifically as it relates to Dwight Howard, and we'll get into some Knicks stuff. I will do so as usual with my good friend Moke Hamilton. Hi, Moke.
How you doing, Tommy?
Brian Geltzeiler is here as well. Brian, let's get right into it. We've talked a lot about stuff. We've been talking about Dwight Howard. We've been reporting about a lot of stuff over the last week or so. Yesterday was kind of a game changer from Darryl Morey's perspective in amnestying Louis Scola and literally pushing all his chips into the middle of the table in an effort to bring in Dwight Howard.
Yeah, the Rockets are making every big move here to get Howard, where they were not willing up till this week to take on any of Orlando's bad contracts. They're now willing to take on a wealth of Orlando's bad contracts, and that, to my estimation, will get the deal done. That was Orlando's big hang-up. Rob Hennigan, their general manager, wants to be able to lighten the load on contracts. For Houston, I'm not sure how much I love this. I think this is a very big bet on a guy who's made it very clear he doesn't want to stay with you for the future. The Rockets are doing what they have to do to see if they can make a move towards the top of the Western Conference. I'm not sure it's going to work in that front either. I wish Darryl Morey luck.
Here's what I know, Moke. Dwight Howard is not happy with Rob Hennigan. Dwight Howard wants to be in Brooklyn. If he gets traded to Houston and Darryl Morey makes this move, it's a risk because Dwight really still has his eyes set on Brooklyn, but there's a problem with that.
Well, I mean, the major problem there with Brooklyn is the fact that they're not going to have cap space. And what I said about the Carmelo Anthony situation is very similar to what's happening right now with Dwight Howard, what happened with Anthony and the Knicks. But I think that's important to realize is the Knicks were poised to have cap space this summer when Anthony was going to be a free agent. So the threat of signing him as a free agent was very, very real. With Brooklyn, that threat does not exist. One thing that I want to say about the Rocket situation, as far as gambling is concerned, professional athletes don't usually leave as much as $25 million of guaranteed salary on the table. And that's what Dwight Howard would do if he were traded to the Rockets, but then ended up going somewhere else as a free agent. Last thing, very quickly, the same exact thing happened with Rasheed Wallace when he was traded to the Pistons. I guess that was in 2004. Rasheed actually wanted to be a Knick, and he made no secrets about that. He went to the Pistons. He was in the final year of his deal, vowed that he was leaving, and then won a championship and decided to stay there.
Yeah.
Dwight might not win a championship in Houston, but walking away from that money is really hard.
Morey's a smart guy. I mean, I think a lot of people, you have to be a smart guy to be an executive in the NBA, some names, aside. But does he put the franchise, in a situation where, okay, what do we do if Dwight now demands to go to Brooklyn after they trade for him? Did they say, hey, let him go to free agency? Did they take on Brook Lopez's contract, which to me is one of the worst contracts now in the NBA? Do they take on a Joe Johnson in exchange? Maybe they get a Marshawn Brooks, some picks. What do you do if you're Darryl Morey and Dwight Howard says, listen, man, I'm not staying here?
If I'm Darryl Morey, I let him play out the season. And I think you have to understand the situation Houston has been in since Yao Ming left. They're in NBA purgatory. In the NBA, you either want to be competing for a title or rebuilding. That middle ground, last team in the playoffs, first team out, is a nightmare for teams. It's a spot that you can pass through, but to plant yourself there like Houston has and like Phoenix has is a very difficult spot to be in. Houston wants to get removed from that area. So they figure we're going to go for Howard. If we keep him, we become a team that can be a top four in the Western Conference. If we lose him, well, we're going to break down and have to start it from scratch anyway. If we're going to break it down and start it from scratch, we might as well give ourselves every opportunity that we can to have a player like Dwight Howard and look to keep him on board. So I think as much as he demands to go to Brooklyn, once he gets to Houston, unless they're completely convinced they can't keep him, and I'm not sure they would take on Brook Lopez because that puts them right back into that NBA purgatory I'm talking about.
Orlando didn't want anything to do with that.
Absolutely. So you talk about that. Well, I kind of think that you'll have a situation here where Houston will completely break down. If they're going to lose Howard, then Howard goes to free agency, and that's where it gets interesting.
Plus, it gives them time to maybe bring in a Chris Paul or maybe pair him with a point guard, which is something that he's always wanted. It's also, we've seen this before in New York with Mike Piazza, show the city off for a year. You take your chances and then maybe let him go to free agency. Moving on to the Knicks, also related to Houston. Two things. Obviously, number one is Jeremy Lin, which we will get into in a second. But you took some heat recently about your stance on the Marcus Camby trade, sign and trade essentially. You took heat initially. I found out from the Knicks that they had to include almost $3 million in the deal, which they didn't report. Nobody was reporting. So a lot of validation to you. Talk a little bit more about your stance on the Marcus Camby acquisition for the Knicks.
Well, the way that I feel about the Camby thing is just like And I want to kind of make this clear. I knew from the beginning that the money was included, and that was a major part of the reason why I felt the way that I felt about the trade. Without question, Camby helps the Knicks. Okay, that's obvious. But my thing there was that Camby is a 38-year-old free agent, and he was poised to leave Houston and leave them with nothing. Now, you're the Knicks. You have a very, very limited array of assets. Josh Harrelson, good player, second-round draft picks. We've seen them become so important over the years. Landry Fields was a second-round pick. Trevor Ariza was a second-round pick. Okay, it's non-guaranteed money when the guy is picked. And then now with the new collective bargaining agreement, the aggregate amount of cash that you can send out per season is $3 million. You send that out in a trade in July, you cannot buy a first-round pick or even a second-round pick when the next draft comes around. So all of that is so important. The Knicks had a limited array of assets. They gave up a ton of them to get a 38-year-old free agent that was already leaving. To me, as far as deal making and business sense is concerned, I don't think the deal itself was that good.
And they still haven't addressed number one issue is somebody who can make a jump shot from beyond the perimeter. What's the holdup with Jeremy Lin?
Well, very frankly, right now, Houston, before they officially sign this offer sheet they've agreed to, they want to see, number one, what's happening with Omer Sheik and the Bulls. And so once they get a little clarity there, they'll sign Lin to this offer sheet. The Knicks will match, but the Knicks will wait to the absolute 11th hour to inform Houston that they're going to match, which is smart business. The truth of the matter is, if you're going to sign a poison pill deal like that, the team that is going to match it has to show you some downside. The Knicks have to punish Houston a little bit and make them twist in the wind. And with Dwight Howard being the stakes in all this for Houston, and maybe Atlanta lurking a little bit, and maybe the Lakers lurking a little bit, nothing wrong with making Houston twist in the wind here. Maybe next time they go to jump on somebody's restricted free agent or one of the Knicks restricted free agents, they'll think twice if it's going to cost them something in terms of cap space and time.
Agreed. Guys, great stuff. You look great in the new studio, by the way. Tremendous stuff. Welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
And remember, to get all your information on the Knicks and a little NBA, check out thenixblog.com, part of the SNY.TV blog network. For Moke and Brian, I'm Tommy. We'll see you next time.